In order to keep your job at the Department of Justice now, you must lie to a federal judge. I'm not mincing words. They just fired a senior litigator that headed their immigration litigation department because he told the truth as he had to, as an officer of the court, under his code of professional responsibility of candor to the tribunal. Even when you're being a zealous advocate, you can't bald-faced lie to a federal judge. And because Mr. Erez Ruveni told the truth in a filing about Armando Garcia, the guy that was under an asylum order, not to be sent to El Salvador under penalty of death, who got sent to El Salvador during that deportation flight without due process, middle of the night, no notice. Now the judge in Maryland has ordered his return, Judge Paul Azinis, by tomorrow or by Monday at 11:59 p.m. And now the Trump administration has fired the lawyer for telling the truth. I'm not making this up. That alone is a bar violation by Todd Blanche, the number 2 lawyer in the Department of Justice, and the Attorney General. You can't order your underlings to lie to a federal judge. So when he was asked point blank, this lawyer, Erez Ruveni, did the government violate a known order of asylum protection from a judge from 2019 when they loaded in the middle of the night without notice and no due process Mr. Armando Garcia onto that flight, shackled him and sent him with a shaved head into the supermax deadly prisons of El Salvador? Did that violate the judge's order? What was he going to say? Well, I don't know, Judge. He told the truth. He said it did. And he said it over and over again during a hearing on Friday. And that got him canned. Note to those in the Department of Justice, resign now. Resign now. All hope is lost. You're now being ordered to lie to federal judges, and to federal judges, don't believe a word the Department of Justice under Donald Trump says in your courtrooms. They can't be trusted. They're being punished under penalty of death and being fired if they don't lie to support the Trump administration. I'm Michael Popok. I'm fired up. You're here on Legal AF. Let's get down to it. This case arises out of Armando Garcia. The public is up in arms about it. It was a big topic during the hands-off movement on Saturday. He was picked up at a Home Depot when he's got an order of protection from a federal judge from 2019 because he was targeted along with his family by the MS-13 gang, criminal gang, because his family ran a successful business and they wanted him to be in the gang. He got an order of protection, never to go anywhere. The U.S. had to keep him away from El Salvador, where he would face certain possible death. Okay, that's going on. He's down at Home Depot waiting on a job. He's trying to work. His wife's a U.S. citizen. They have a baby. They live in Maryland. They pick him up. They interview him, whatever, and they tell him on the spot, "Oh, your status has changed." Status has changed. He's got an order of protection from a federal judge. Boom, put him on a middle of the night. He's part of that 250 that get deported. That's the subject of another federal lawsuit involving Judge Boasberg, Chief Judge Boasberg, who's about to find the Trump administration in contempt. So while the Trump administration's about to be in contempt, now we get the new reporting that Erez Ruveni, who was the lawyer who filed a document that I talked about late last week and had to admit in court that Immigration and Custom Enforcement and the the Trump administration violated an order of a federal judge when they put that person into that El Salvadoran prison. What else was he going to say? But to Todd Blanche, that's insubordination. See, he's the number 2 lawyer in the Department of Justice, and that's often referred to as the enforcer or the bad cop. He's a perfect guy for the bad cop. Now, this guy used to be a U.S. attorney before he found the dark side. He left his law firm, represented Donald Trump on his own, and got rewarded as his criminal defense lawyer, where he lost, by the way, in New York on a 34 felony count conviction. But he got rewarded as the number 2 person in the Department of Justice. The number 3 person in the Department of Justice is his right-hand lackey, Emil Bove. So Todd Blanche finds out, because we all find out, it's in a filing that was made by the federal government in which they admitted ICE knew about the order, but put him on the plane for deportation anyway. That's a telling confession right there. And then at the hearing on Friday that I reported on, now that we're starting to see the transcript, the judge grilled Mr. Ruveni, the head of litigation, immigration litigation for the Department of Justice, and said, what happened? Why did it happen? I don't know. My client won't tell me. Why can't you get him back? I've asked the same thing, Your Honor. I'm going to read to you from the actual sections. I asked the same thing, Your Honor. I'd like 24 hours to try to convince my client to bring Mr. Armando Garcia back. So that was in the public filing. So now they then send an email that the New York Times got their hands on, effectively firing Erez Ruveni, who just got promoted 2 weeks ago. He was a career prosecutor. They must have figured out he passed the litmus test and they promoted him. Drew Ensign is his immediate boss. Drew Ensign is the one that's getting cross-examined in Judge Boasberg's court and having to look down at his shoes because the judge is about to find the government in contempt in that case for violating his order for not even going to El Salvador during the pendency of his injunction hearing. So now, after much fanfare, where Drew Ensign sent around apparently an email to everybody in the Department of Justice, I've selected Erez Ruveni. I had a lot of applicants. Thank you very much. He's going to be great. He's done great with sanctuary cities. Not so great anymore, because now he got a new email from Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's former criminal defense lawyer, that says you're being put on administrative leave. You're about to get fired for conduct prejudicial to your client. I now live in a world, as do you, where a lawyer has to lie in court and violate their oath, their code of professional responsibility and conduct, violate their ethics, violate their sworn duty, put their bar license in jeopardy in order to support the Trump administration. He's being fired for conduct prejudicial to your client. He's being fired because you failed to follow a directive of your superiors. A directive to do what, Blanche? A directive to lie, to violate his oath of office? Independent from being a member of the Department of Justice, he, like I am, are an officer of the court. We swore an oath to uphold the Constitution and to uphold and follow our rules of professional responsibility. And there's an entire chapter Todd Blanche might have forgotten about, even though he was in the Department of Justice, about candor to the tribunal. And it's what it sounds like. You can't lie to the judge. You can't lie to your opponent. You can't lie to the judge. You have to have candor. You need to be a zealous advocate. That's also in there. But the intersection of zealotry. Yeah, zealotry. The intersection of zealous advocacy and candor to the tribunal means you can't lie. You got to tell truthful things. What don't they like? Let me read it to you. I knew this guy's goose was cooked when I read, and I did a hot take about this. I read his filing. On page 3 of Mr. Ruveni's for the Department of Justice filing that he just did 6 days ago, on page 3, he concedes, on March 15th, although ICE was aware of his protection for removal to El Salvador, Armando Garcia was removed to El Salvador because of an administrative error. Listen to these words. Although ICE was aware, Immigration, Custom and Enforcement, was aware of his protection order from the 2019 federal judge of asylum, he was removed to El Salvador because of an administrative error. Okay? It gets worse. Although when I say it gets worse, it's everything I'm telling you here is about Ruveni telling the truth to the federal judge. The federal judge issued her memorandum opinion in which just filed today, memorandum opinion on Saturday, in which the judge denied the motion to stay because now they don't like her preliminary injunction. She issued, as I reported, a preliminary injunction on Friday to require the Trump administration to get Armando Garcia back from El Salvador, to repatriate him and bring him back by tomorrow at before midnight. That led the Trump administration to have its senior advisor, Stephen Miller, who's the deputy White House chief of staff, but really he's the puppet master for Donald Trump. He's the one who invented all these crazy immigration rules from the last time, putting children in cages. That came out of the fevered mind of Stephen Miller. He ran a law firm, even though he's not a lawyer, called America First Legal, AF Legal. That sounds familiar. Stephen Miller blurts out on social media, she's a Marxist. The judge, Marxist, she thinks she's the president of El Salvador. First of all, I thought the Trump administration liked the president of El Salvador, Bukele. There seems to be a love fest going on in social media posts between Marco Rubio, Bukele, Donald Trump, and Bukele. I mean, Bukele's giving Donald Trump and the Secretary of State instructions on how to run a democracy as a dictator of El Salvador. What's the problem? I mean, I thought you liked the guy. Now she wants to be now she's the Marxist judge who wants to be the president of El Salvador. No, she's using her inherent authority and equitable authority to order the administration to go do something, which is pick up the phone and get him back. You said you negotiated all these agreements. The other side, the El Salvadoran side, has declared in Bukele and others, we're going to keep these people until the United States tells us what to do about disposition. So we're in control. And the judge cited to that. But let me read to you where the nails are for the coffin of Mr. Ravini. But again, it's a profile in courage. And others in the Department of Justice, you should leave now, because now you know who you work for. You're being ordered to lie. Here's what the judge said. Neither the United States, it's on page 2, neither the United States nor El Salvador have told anyone why he, Armando Garcia, was returned to the country to which he cannot return, or why he's been detained in that Supermax prison. She quotes from the transcript on the 4th of April. Mr. Ravini, we have nothing to say on the merits. We concede he should not have been removed to El Salvador. Uh-oh. The court, what basis is he being held? Why is he in that jail in the first place? Mr. Ravini, I don't know. The information has not been given to me. I don't know. The judge went on to say on page 2, the silence is telling. As defendants acknowledged they had no legal authority to arrest him, no justification to detain him, and no grounds to send him to El Salvador, let alone deliver him into one of the most dangerous prisons in the Western Hemisphere. Having confessed, that's Mr. Ravini, grievous error. The defendants now argue that this court lacks the power to hear the case. She continues on page 4. More confessions, more truth-telling, more proper lawyering by Mr. Ravini. Page 4. In Armando Garcia's case, the immigration judge concluded that he was entitled to amnesty protection because a gang had been targeting him and threatening his family because they ran a successful business. There was no appeal of that order granting withholding of removal. It was an order withholding removal. And so that decision was final as of November 9th, 2019. From the hearing transcript, Mr. Ravini, the government did not appeal that decision, so it is final. Accordingly, as defendants have repeatedly admitted, they were legally prohibited from deporting Armando Garcia to El Salvador. From the hearing transcript, Mr. Ravini, there's no dispute that the order could not be used to send Mr. Armando Garcia to El Salvador. That's a confession. Now, let's go to the last page. That's the final nail in his coffin. And I'm sure this is the one that got Marco Rubio, having read the transcript, all hot and bothered. Todd Blanche, Marco Rubio too. Page 12. In the end, defendant's redressability argument rings hollow. Here, the Trump administration has said, you can't order us to fix it. We have no ability to go call El Salvador and get somebody out of jail. He's in El Salvador. Judge is like, he's in El Salvador because you told him to go there, because you paid for him to go there, because El Salvador is saying they're waiting for you to tell them how you want them disposed of. You're in control. As their counsel suggested at the hearing, the judge said, this is not about defendants' inability to return Armando Garcia, but their lack of desire, the lack of desire of the Trump administration. And this is now, she has it in block quotes. The court. Can we talk about, just very practically, why can't the U.S. get Armando Garcia back? Mr. Ravini, Your Honor, I will say for the court's awareness that when this case landed on my desk, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, a week ago, the first thing I did was ask my clients, that's the U.S. government, that very question. I've not received to date an answer that I find satisfactory. He's gotten an answer. Listen to that. He's gotten an answer, but not one that he finds satisfactory. And the judge continued there flat, and he asked for 24 hours to convince his client, the Trump administration, to reverse course and get them out of jail. By the way, he got fired within the 24 hours. Flat refusal, however, does not negate redressability. Mr. Ravenni. I'd like to see Mr. Ravenni get hired by any number of law firms that are settling with Donald Trump as penance. I'd like to see a group of Department of Justice lawyers storm out, walk out, hands off their ethics, hands off their bar licenses, hands up, elbows up, and walk out the door. I'd like to see a bar grievance be filed against Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche for ordering members of the Department of Justice to lie to federal judges. I'd like to see Judge Zinnes get to the bottom of this at her next hearing. And by the way, a hearing that Mr. Ravenni is not going to be at unless the judge orders him to appear. The judge can still order him to appear. What happened, Mr. Ravenni? Now, there's still attorney-client privilege, but she can try to get to the bottom of it or refer it to the Bar Association in Washington to get to the bottom of it. I think all of those things should happen. I'll tell you what's not happening. The preliminary injunction forcing the return of Mr. Armando Garcia has not been lifted, has not been stayed by the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals at the time of this taping. If it changes, I'll come back and tell you. And Monday at 11:59, I don't think Mr. Armando Garcia is coming back. So we're going to have a constitutional crisis, another one. Mark it down. If this is a drinking game, we'd all be severely intoxicated by now with Donald Trump and lurching from one constitutional crisis to the next. If he doesn't show up in court or come back to the United States on a report on Monday, and there's no stay from a federal judge, Trump's going to have to try to go to the U.S. Supreme Court and get them to bail him out. I just don't think they're going to do it. They may. You know, it's very hard to predict the Supreme Court. It's very hard to predict Amy Coney Barrett and therefore the Supreme Court. But I'm going to continue to follow it for you right here at the intersection of law and politics. One place, Legal AF, the YouTube channel. Take a moment, hit the free subscribe button. I'm Michael Popok. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.